Welcome to episode 1 of the Black Birth Stories podcast. I am your host, Dr. Tiffany Woodus, and I'm so excited to have you join us today. My very first guest ever is my very own mama, Miss Cecelia Allen. She is, oh my gosh, what can I say about my mom? She is a phenomenal woman. She's a Proverbs 31 woman. She is the reason I am, and I am so blessed and so honored that she agreed to come on and be my very first guest on the Black Birth Stories podcast. Miss Allen, can you introduce yourself to the people? Just let the people know who you are. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for asking me and for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share my birth stories with your audience, with other Black mamas, as we journey together through this birthing process. I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited to be your mommy. I am the mother of three amazing children, adult children these days, but I'm excited. Glad to be here with you, Tiffany.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, let's get into it, shall we?
All right, let's do it.
Okay. First question. Can you take us back to the moment you found out you were pregnant? What thoughts and emotions came rushing in?
Wow.
You can do each pregnancy, however you want to approach it is fine.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
great. My very first pregnancy, of course, you are my oldest daughter. You are my very first child. And I think I was afraid because I was a single mom at that time. I left college after my first year and got pregnant at age 19, 20, I believe it was. And at that time, it was not a very cohesive relationship I was in. So, because it was not a cohesive relationship, my mom and dad told me that I needed to return home. And when I came back home, the very first person I told was my mother. And the reason that I told my mom is because my mom worked in on OBG. She was in 1 day surgery for a while, and then she moved over to OBGYN unit at St. Vincent's Hospital in Little Rock, Arkansas. So having the comfort and knowing that my mother will be GN nurse really gave me a sense of peace and comfort. And that she was the first one that I told. It was scary, but my mother embraced me.
Was that her first reaction? Was she shocked? Was she disappointed? How did she take it?
I think that the very first thing was she was in a little bit of a shock. And after the shock wore off, there may have been a little bit of a disappointment because, as parents, we want our children to go on further and do things bigger and better than we did in our youth. So after that, it was an embrace. It was definitely an embrace because she could see that I was scared and because I was afraid and she wanted to calm my nerves a little bit. So we embraced and we set forth to figure out a birthday plan as to how we were going to do this. So I was grateful. Then my mom told my dad,
Mm-hmm.
all of us after that.
All right. That's awesome. So, what were the first few days like after you knew? How did that moment feel?
After I knew and after I shared with my mom and dad, I was very nervous. I was very nervous because I knew that my body was getting ready to change, but I didn't know enough about being pregnant because I was a young teenager, age
Mm-hmm.
19, 20. And so I sought out to start a knowledge search about what was going to be happening to my body because I wasn't aware. You know how time to time our mothers back in the day, 79, 80, would share certain things, but they would not embrace us with the whole entire story.
Yes.
So when I started digging around about what was going to start happening to my body, then I kind of settled in a little bit, kind of settled in. And the more I learned about the trimesters, what to expect, how my body would change, how I needed to respect my body because now I was carrying another little human and some of the restrictions that I really needed to adhere to.
It's so interesting that you bring that up because, in my day to day clinic work of doing this, I meet so many young women and even not so young women who have
Yes.
no idea about what's going on with their bodies. Like they don't even know the proper names of things. Like I'll get out my flow chart and my model and say, this is a vulva, this is a mons, this is a
Right.
perineum. And they have no idea. Like, we just think that the vagina is everything, all the things. And it's crazy if you don't even know that basic foundation
Hmm.
of what is going on with your body. I mean, that all of this is scary. It's unknown. It's
Absolutely.
overwhelming, just
Absolutely.
simply because you don't know. And we don't realize how just educating ourselves goes such a long way towards calming our nerves, calming
This
our
is true.
anxiety and our fears.
Absolutely.
It's great to hear that that was the first step that you took. Since you were just a teenager, 19, was there ever a thought, or did your family ever encourage you to think about terminating the pregnancy? Or were you always of the mindset of, we're going to do this and we're just going to figure it out?
Well, for me, my mind was set on, because I was raised in a Christian home, that we're going forward. Unfortunately, I was given the option by um, they. I know I was going to lose it here.
Take your time.
I just have to be careful about how I say this, because you're my child.
Yep. And we're talking about me. Did you
I
ever think
know.
about terminating me? Yes. I can take it.
Okay.
This is how we heal. This is how we grow. This is how we move forward. I would pass you a tissue, but you're virtual. We're not in the same space.
Okay. Okay.
Woo!
All right. See, the reason that I'm so nervous about telling you this part is because, I don't want you to look down on the other person that I was with.
Mm-hmm.
But we were big time partyers. We would like to go out and dance on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and he offered me some money to terminate the pregnancy so that we could continue on with our lives. And it was very cold. It was very callous. It was very hurtful. And to think that that's your second thought after I tell you that I am pregnant with your child was very disturbing. It was very disturbing. So, I had to make up my mind, because my mom was a OBGYN nurse. She knew about DNCs. She also knew about abortions, and they really gave me the opportunity to make up my mind about what I wanted to do. And because of my upbringing, I was born out of wedlock. So that was the first thing that I thought about. And
I don't think I knew
because,
that.
no, I know you did. I know you
Yeah,
did.
I don't think I knew that.
No, that's why I said,
Mm-hmm.
how much of this
Mm-hmm.
do you really want me to share? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, I was born out of wedlock, and my parents didn't get married until after I was about a year old.
Mm.
They were in college at AM&N, which is now UAPB.
UAPB, Pine
Yeah,
Bluff.
who you with? Who you
Yes.
with?
Woo
But
woo.
anyway, yes. But they were both students in college, and they had to pivot from their dreams because my mom was pregnant. And so she went to nursing school, and my father went to an industrial school. They called her back in the day to become a boiler operator, and she became an RN.
Mm-hmm.
And because I knew that I was born out of wedlock, I stopped and thought about how difficult the journey might be for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I had seen my mom and dad work so very, very hard to provide for my brother and I. So once I prayed about it, once I asked the Lord to help me with it, and I talked to the Lord like I'm talking to you, and I told the Lord, I said, Lord, this is very scary. This man has offered me money to terminate the pregnancy, and I can't handle that because that's not your will. I said, Lord, whatever you have in store for me, I'm going to join my faith with yours, and I'm going to walk this out, because children are a gift from God, and I am going to embrace this as part of my assignment going forward. So I'm thankful as I shared that with my mom and dad that they embraced me as well. They
Mm-hmm.
embraced me as well. They said, we're grateful that you've made the decision that you have, and now we can rally around you. But we wanted it to be your decision, Cecilia,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to live with, and going forward, you will have to carry this child, and your life is not going to ever be the same, but you don't know who you're carrying. So let's
Right.
praise God for the life that is coming forward, and we're going to support you. We're going to love on you. I had great aunts and uncles, grandparents that just surrounded me. They did not see it as, oh my God, she made a mistake. Oh my goodness, or label me in
Mm-hmm.
any shape, form, or fashion. They were just really awesome about loving on me as
It's
I
so
journeyed
awesome
through.
that your faith was so strong at 19,
Yes, yes,
that you really pulled it up,
yes.
didn't depart from it could activate it, could tap into it when you
Right.
most needed it, you know?
Absolutely.
Which is so interesting because I feel like so many of us on this faith journey, you don't get to that place until you've lived some life, until you've
Right.
been through some things.
Yes.
You could be a PK and sit in church your whole life and hear the scriptures and memorize the scriptures, got your Easter speech down, do all the roles, but
Yes, ma'am.
it's almost like you're just going through the motions, you
Right.
know,
Right.
until you
Absolutely.
actually live. So the fact that you were mature enough and developed enough at 19 to be able to draw from that and tap into it when you most need it is
Yes.
awesome, you know?
And
Like,
I thank God for that because of my upbringing. I had been taught the way of the Lord. And I had seen how other young ladies that had gotten pregnant, out of wedlock, that were teenagers, how they had been treated. And the church rallied around them. They did not embarrass them at all. They rallied around the mother to offer her the support that she may need because back in the 79 and 65 or so, it was almost shunned in the church.
mm-hmm,
But I came along at a time where there was progressive leadership, and my mom and dad were a part of that church. So when I say that my parents were my covering and that they supported me totally in my decisions, I did not stop going to church because that's where I was being fed,
mm-hmm,
and I wanted to remain in the will of God, even though I had to repent from sin. That did not mean that the Lord had thrown me away.
mm-hmm,
I made a mistake.
mm-hmm,
And once I admitted and turned from that way, continued to walk with the Lord. So I'm grateful for my upbringing as a Christian teenager, as a Christian
mm-hmm,
child. So it's
mm-hmm,
vital. It's vital to our young people that we embrace them as they journey through life because we forget sometimes that I've been that age. I've been 12, 13, 14. I've been that age.
mm-hmm,
And once we look back and come down off of our pious pedestals, we can embrace young people and help them walk through the issues of life.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's so awesome. Did you encounter any unexpected challenges, either physically or emotionally, that surprised you during your pregnancy?
One of the things that really made me feel indifferent was the size that I was becoming. I had always been like a size 3.
Mm-hmm.
And to read that my baby was going to be like a watermelon sitting on my pelvic floor and, all these movements that I was going to anticipate, it was very frightening. It was very frightening to see my body changing. But as the months went by, I could feel my baby moving. I could feel you moving. And when the first time I felt you move, it was like I called my mom, I called my dad, and I was like, my baby is moving. My baby is moving. My mom said, yes, that's to be expected right about now.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt such a connection instead of just watching my body grow. When I felt you moving and kicking around, I was convinced I don't have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bit of a shock,
Mm-hmm.
but it took some getting used to. It took some getting used to it. I had to embrace that my body was no longer mine, no longer mine.
Mm.
So I had to make some adjustments there because how you read about something in a textbook, but it's not until it starts happening to you,
Right, right,
yes, that it really hits home. Yes,
right.
absolutely, for
You
sure.
know, I thought about something. I want to go back to the previous question. I thought about something that God put on my mind while you were talking, and I didn't know that you were born out of wedlock, and then you had a baby prior to marriage. Were you worried? You know, we talk about generational blessings and generational curses in the church. Were you worried that this was a continuation of that? Is that ever something you've considered? Did you try to be intentional in the way you raised me or you raised us to ensure that it stopped with you? Was that ever something that was a part of your consciousness?
It was, and I wanted to break the curse with you and your siblings. I knew the struggle that I had. And, everything was not peachy keen all the time. I felt like a dependent sometimes because I wasn't working and it was a bit of a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to teach you and your siblings that going forward, it stops with me. It
Mm-hmm.
stops with me. going forward, marriage is a beautiful thing. Want you to walk out your life in the ways of the Lord, in the ways in which your dad and I taught you. And that was the most powerful thing I really wanted to teach with me.
I was thinking also, how we are caught off guard and we are shocked by these things that we didn't necessarily see written in our story,
Right, right.
that we didn't anticipate. It wasn't a part of the master plan. When I was
Hmm.
daydreaming back in the day,
Absolutely.
I didn't see this, but how God is never shocked.
Never.
You didn't catch
Nothing.
him off guard.
Nothing
He
takes
didn't
him by
say, wait a
surprise.
minute, where
He
did that
didn't
come
say.
from?
He didn't
None
say,
of that.
hold up. None
No,
of
no,
that.
no. No,
None
he
of
knew that
that.
about you. He knew that about you
He knew that.
and made provisions for it, already made a way
Absolutely.
for it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like
And
it
it
was
was
already written in your story.
already a part of his plan. I
Yes.
just didn't know.
Yes. Yes.
I just didn't
Like
know what his plan was.
it's such a simple thing when you think about it, but like when I finally became aware that God was not surprised by that.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I was like, Lord, who, me? You think
Yeah.
I'm capable of doing this? So I was like, okay, Lord, you and me together and my support system, we can do this. But I
Yeah.
need your help. Don't leave me.
Yeah.
Don't
He
leave me.
called he called you to it, therefore he equipped you.
Absolutely. And it was going to be a great blessing. And, as my mom and dad said, you have no idea, who this baby is going to become or what
Hmm.
this baby is going to become. And I look back on your birth now and I look at the woman that you are now and the ways that the Lord has opened doors for you and made ways for you and your siblings. Glory to God. Glory to God.
Absolutely.
Bless his name.
Absolutely. I just wish it'd be nice. It'd be nice if God would just give us more detail.
Yeah.
He's just not big on detail.
No,
And
he's
so it
not.
gives us some anxiety.
It does. It
Go
does.
to a place where I will send you type of thing.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed.
Could you please just tell me how this is going to end up?
Absolutely.
Just
Can I
let
get
me
some
know.
glimpses? Can I get
Yeah,
some
yeah, just
glimpses?
a little,
Just a little
into the
preview. Can we
future.
get some clips
Yeah.
of coming attractions, God?
Yeah, that's where our faith kicks in though.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why he relies, and that's why we can rely more on him. And it builds our faith to
Mhm.
trust God. It builds our
Mhm.
faith. And we become so encouraged by all of the steps that we see and that we're making going forward. Sometimes you look back and you pinch yourself, who, me? God,
Mhm.
you entrust me with this?
Mhm.
Are
Mhm.
you sure I can
Yeah.
do this,
Did you get
God?
the right person?
You do know my first name, right? I
That's
read
funny.
that scripture about greater is he that
Man.
sent me, the greater
Yeah.
is the world.
Yeah.
But
But
who,
do you
me,
believe it?
Lord?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Do you
absolutely.
believe it? Okay, okay, okay.
Absolutely.
These are the worst mistakes Black women can make when choosing an OBGYN, assuming they'll automatically prioritize your safety, ignoring the signs when they dismiss your concerns, and not having a plan to advocate for yourself. Sis, I've been there, and that's why I'm so glad I found the Mocha Maternity Survival Guide, Choosing the Right OBGYN. This guide gave me everything I needed to avoid those mistakes, from conversation starters to tools for assessing their care. It's the ultimate roadmap to make sure you're seen, heard, and protected. Don't take chances with your health. Get your copy today and make the choice that could change everything.
Can you describe a time when you felt truly empowered or perhaps vulnerable during your pregnancy journey and what helped you through that?
I particularly felt vulnerable during your sister's birth,
Mm.
my middle child, your sister Rhonda. We were going through and we're having a pretty good pregnancy, and I was off. I reached my 37th week and going into my 38th week. So I had taken off work and I had plenty of time to take off the sick time. And as we got closer to the birth week, you were asked to count the amount of times that your baby moved within the first 3 or 4 hours when you woke up in the morning
Hmm.
after you had breakfast and all of that. And so I would count the movements, and if they were within range, you didn't have to call, the nurse or PA or anything like that. So as I got closer to the date, I noticed that Rhonda's movement had started to slow a little bit. So I already had an appointment that week, so I just kept notes of it. And when I got to my appointment, the doctor asked me how it was going, and I told him, well, the baby's movements are starting to slow down a little bit. he was concerned about that. So he put me on a monitor, and I was given soda to drink, Coca-Cola, because it had the highest amount of caffeine. And I never forget, they strapped me in and strapped the monitor to my belly. And they weren't happy with the way she was moving either. So they jostled the baby and run about in my belly. That was the first time I was introduced to Petrus Farms chocolate chunk cookies. So, okay,
Mm,
hey, these cookies, we need some more sugar, we need some more caffeine in there. And they were not happy with her movement. So they decided that let's go have this baby today. I was like,
mm,
wait a minute. I need to
mm,
call my husband. I need to call
mhm,
my mom and dad. Wait a minute. So I felt like I wasn't in control of this story anymore. I was like, I want to have this baby the way I had my other baby.
mhm,
And it was like, I'm sorry, we cannot do that. We cannot do that. And I felt very, very vulnerable. I got to go home. I got my suitcase packed. I got my baby bag packed. My husband is out in the field. Wait a minute. I
mm,
can't do this today. So
mhm,
that really
mhm.
shook me. That really shook me. It did.
One of the first things I tell my moms is that I think the first lesson of motherhood is you've got to relinquish control. That, we may have plans and we may have our processes and, our prototypes and templates and all the things that we think
Yes.
we're going to experience, but we have got to go into this with a flexible and an open mindset, remembering that, yes, you want a plan, you want an idea of what this should look like, but that at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you are with a provider, a physician, a
Yes.
midwife, a team of people who will keep your best interests in mind. And ultimately, that is that you come home safe and healthy with your baby. And if that means that we have to pivot, if we have to modify, if we have to adjust, know that those decisions are being made with the grand theme idea of keeping everybody healthy, because it may not
Absolutely.
look like what you expected. It may
Hmm.
not turn out the way you wanted it to. It may not be to the T what you had envisioned. But at the end of the day, we want to be safe and healthy. We want
Absolutely.
your baby safe and healthy, and we want to minimize all trauma.
That's true. Let me go back a little bit when I was reading about my body and how it would change after my mom and I picked a physician. He had written a book. And as I was reading his book and doing my own research, it said nothing, it told you about the things to expect during labor. And it just highlighted a passage about, just in case plan A doesn't work out, there's plan B where you may have to have a cesarean section.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and it was just mentioned. That's
Mm-hmm.
all. It was not deeply explored or explained to me. So when I went in and you were breech,
Mm-hmm.
and they had tried a couple of maneuvers, but I was already in labor. And at that time, they literally did a X-ray to tell me, "I'm sorry, your baby is upside down, so we're going to have to do something different." And it frightened me. And I looked at my mom and I said, "Mama, what are they going to do?" She said, "Calm down, calm down. We're going to do a cesarean section. That's the way we're going to have to do it." And I was like, "What?" I just read a little bit about that. I had no idea about
Mm-hmm.
what was going to go on. So it frightened me. And so she kind of talked me through it in a hurry because
Mm-hmm.
they were prepping me. They were
Right.
prepping me for the
As you're going back for
cesarean.
surgery. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so scared because
Mm.
I was not expecting. This was not a part of my birth story.
Right. Right.
It wasn't a part of my plan. So
Right.
I had to calm myself down enough so that I could cooperate with the team
Right.
because literally I was very, very scared. Tears streaming down my eyes. What does that mean?
Right.
I just read a little bit about it. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, no, that's not what I want.
Right.
Well, it's what's best for you and the baby.
That goes back to that education piece. One of the things I like to let people know is, we're going to talk about C-sections. We're going to talk about inductions. We're going to talk about operative vaginal deliveries where, a physician can choose to use a vacuum or a forceps to help a mama have a vaginal delivery. But let's know that at this point, there's no reason to think that we're going to need any of those things. However, the situation can
Hmm.
change at the drop of a dime. And because we know the situation can change at the drop of a dime, when you're in the situation is not the time to prepare for the situation. You want to have
Right.
already have heard of these things. You
Mhm.
want to be familiar with these things. You
Yes,
know what you want to know what to anticipate when it comes to these things. So
absolutely.
in the event that we do have to pivot and we have to discuss a C-section, we've talked about it. This is what it's like. This is what to expect. This is who can be with you. This is how long it's going to take. This is why we're doing
Yes,
this and that and the other. You want to have had
absolutely.
these conversations so that it takes down the anxiety and the fear of being in
Right.
that situation. And you also want to know how to advocate for yourself in that situation.
That's
There's a framework that I like to teach people called the brain framework, which is basically a model for shared decision making, which encourages you to go through just like a checklist of questions that will give you a better
it.
understanding
Yes,
about
yes,
why someone is recommending something to you. So the brain
exactly.
is, what are the benefits? Why are you recommending this to me? What are the
Absolutely.
risks of this procedure? What are the alternatives?
Mhm.
What are the indications?
Yes,
As in, why are you recommending this to me? And also, what is my intuition telling me about what I'm
yes.
hearing?
What does my body saying to
Yeah,
me?
what is my body? What is
Absolutely.
my spirit saying? Because you
Yes,
should never ignore that
right.
inner voice. I call it the Holy Spirit. You might call it other
Correct.
things, but you should never ignore that
Right.
inner voice. And then lastly, what happens if I do nothing?
Exactly.
Or what
Nothing.
happens if I at least take the time I need to
Mm-hmm.
think through this and consider my options? Like, how quickly,
Right.
how urgently do I need to make this decision? Like,
Absolutely.
is this an emergency and I need to decide within the next few seconds, otherwise I could have a bad outcome? Or can we just stop? Can I breathe? Can I
Yes.
speak with my family, the folks that I love and trust, and allow them to help me come up with the best decision for me and for my
Right.
body?
Absolutely. That's good. And I love the way you take the time with your patient and you talk through all of these things because, like you say, on a dime, things could change.
Mm-hmm.
Could change.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so happy that I had a mom that was already a RN OBGYN.
Mm-hmm.
And because she already knew and it was had assisted on all of these types of
Mm-hmm.
surgery, she knew exactly what
Mm-hmm.
my body was going to be going through. But to have to remind me as I'm laying on the table, as I'm being wheeled down the aisleway, you
Mm-hmm.
know, she was trying to get me to stay calm so that I could get through the procedure. I need you to calm down. I'm going to talk you through what they're going to be doing. But it was not, we didn't spend enough time.
Right.
Even when I talked to my OB, it was just he didn't spend enough time there.
I got you.
So that's one of the things I really appreciate about your book, in that you give them the playbook to actually search out a physician that is going to support them, and bring your group and your family with you that can advocate for you.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely, it's vital. It is so vital. Absolutely.
So vital. Thank you for mentioning the book. Yay. The Mocha Maternity Survival Guide, Choosing the Right OB-GYN, which you can get by visiting mochamaternityguide.com. It helps you to really understand why
Absolutely.
choosing a physician, a provider, why making that choice is the single most important decision you could make to improve your pregnancy outcomes. There's so many things that we cannot control when it comes to our birth experience,
Yes,
when it
ma'am.
comes to our
Absolutely.
health, things
That's
that can
right.
impact our health that we cannot control. You could go through things like systemic racism, implicit bias. You could look at genetics and the fact that we may be genetically predisposed to certain medical conditions like high blood
Absolutely.
pressure, diabetes,
Yes.
obesity. Mental
Hmm.
health falls into this as well.
Right,
You could
right.
look at the fact that you were born on a certain side of the tracks and maybe it wasn't safe for you to get outside and walk around and get physical activity, or maybe it was a side of the tracks where there were food deserts and you didn't have easy access to healthy choices. And so people were
Absolutely.
just trying to do the best that they could with the resources they had available to them.
Absolutely.
But when you set aside those things that you can't
Hmm.
control and you think
Right.
about what's the most important thing, like out of all the decisions I can make when it comes to my pregnancy, what's the
Absolutely.
one that's going to really move the needle forward? And that is who you choose to be your physician, who
That's
you
right.
choose to be your midwife, who you choose to be your provider. If you
Absolutely.
get that decision right, all these other things,
Fall into place.
99.9999999%
Absolutely.
of the time, will fall into place, right? Will
Absolutely.
fall
You're
into place.
absolutely correct. That's correct.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. And then we acknowledge that there are situations where you don't get to choose. Maybe
Right.
you had a true emergency and you had to call 911 and EMS took you to
Right.
whatever facility with whatever
Absolutely.
doctor.
It's available. Sure.
You still will find tools in this book that will help you navigate even those tricky situations. So thank you for
Absolutely.
that. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. So I
Absolutely.
did not know that you were hoping to VBAC. VBAC is vaginal birth after cesarean with
Yes.
my sister. I did not know that.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. And going that route, and with the OBGYN that I had, we talked about it. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, he talked to me about the vaginal opening and where he had delivered you. and how he felt about going back in that same area again versus having a vaginal birth. And he told me that my uterus was be weakened if I decided, he gave me as many options as he could, but I was really, your father and I, your dad and I really wanted to have the,
Mm-hmm.
a vaginal birth with that experience. I
Right.
wanted the experience for myself
Right.
because after having you and having a cesarean section, which is a major surgery,
Mm-hmm.
it was difficult, afterwards. When I went home, I had great support, but having to get me out of the bed after
Right.
having had a major surgery
Let
to
alone
take
take
care
care of
of
somebody else.
absolutely,
Exactly.
absolutely. It was like I would be crying and you would be crying, and before I
We
could
just
get to
all
you,
crying. We all
everybody,
cried.
you
Everybody
know,
cried.
everybody cried. My parents were like, "Are you okay?" I'm
No,
getting there. I am not okay.
I'm
Can
not
you help
okay.
me? Can you help
It's
me out
okay
of
to
this?
not be okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But yes, that's what we considered. Absolutely. And when your sister wasn't moving,
Mhm.
according to their parameters, and when he said, this baby's ready, we're gonna have this baby today. I was
Mhm.
like, wait a minute, what? So I was
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
whoa,
Mhm.
everything was. I got all alarmed. Made myself
Mhm.
upset. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like I hear you saying that even though your plan was different from what you were being told needed to
Yeah.
happen, the fact that you had a relationship with your physician and he was able
Absolutely.
to explain to you, listen, I am worried about your baby's health and well being.
Absolutely.
Your baby
Absolutely.
is telling us that it is in trouble, that
Right.
something is going on. I don't know what that something is. I may never know what the answer to that is,
Right.
but I know that we need to listen. We cannot
Yes.
ignore when a
Exactly.
baby is trying to tell us that there is a concern. We cannot watch a baby be distressed for a long, 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 long time
That's
and
true.
think we're going to get a good outcome. And so, in my
Absolutely.
opinion, this is what
Hmm.
we need to do. And
Absolutely.
here's why I don't think we need to try for a vaginal delivery, because if a
Right.
baby is already stressed, we know labor is stressful even more.
Exactly.
It's stressful
Exactly.
for you and for them. So
Right.
we can't take a baby who's stressed, give it more stress, and think we're going to get a good outcome, because they just cannot
Absolutely.
handle what we can handle. So
That's
it
true.
sounds like that transparency, he was transparent with you, really
Absolutely.
did a good job explaining his thought process, and that helped you to understand
It did
why,
indeed.
yeah, this wasn't
Yeah.
the plan, but this is what needs to happen, and we're
Right.
going to go forward and be okay with this. Okay.
Right. And that's also what my mother said. She said, I trust this doctor and you trust him because he's
Hmm.
walked through this entire pregnancy with you. And in his opinion, this is what we need to do. So this is what we're gonna have to do. So, yeah. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
I had to
Well, good.
embrace it.
What hopes and dreams did you start building for your children as you carried them? Were there specific wishes or promises that you made to yourself?
I specifically made promises to my children as I was carrying them, and my goal was to give them an opportunity to enter this world and become the people that God wanted them to be. So I was praying with my babies, and as I carried them, your dad and I played music for you all. Wanted to make sure that we shut out all outside noises and just had some couple time so that we could spend time with our baby. Your dad would talk to my belly. I knew that you could hear my heartbeat, and it was just such a precious, precious time. And I asked God as I was going through all of my pregnancies to please bless my children to be better than I am, to guard their hearts and their minds, give them direction so that they can walk out and live for you. And as we went through our baby dedications and dedicated you all back to the Lord, it was just such a powerful moment because not everybody can be a mom. Not every woman can carry a child. We understand that. And the Lord has even opened up ways for them to become moms otherwise. But in being able to carry our children, we want to make sure that we presented you back to the Lord so that you could go forth in the Lord and the careers and the pathway. We just pray that the Lord would protect, lead, and guide.
Many moms worry about the unknowns. Were there any particular fears that you felt during your pregnancy, and how did you address them?
During one of my pregnancies, I was out just doing outside stuff. I was out in the yard, not necessarily doing much of anything. And I had a incident where I started spotting. And of course, it scared me because I was 6 months into my pregnancy. And when I started spotting, I, of course, got upset. And the very first person I called was not the doctor's office. I called my mother, of course, because she was a RN nurse, OBGYN nurse, so she would know what to do. And so she said, I will meet you at the doctor's office. Call the doctor's office and let them know that I am coming and that you're on your way. So your dad and I had to stop what we were doing and we went in to see the doctor. And after the exam, he said everything is okay with the baby. He says this does happen. And then he explained to me why it might be occurring. And he said, I want you to rest for a little while. I really don't want you up on your feet any more than you have to be. So let's just rest for a while and keep in touch with me. And I had such a very good doctor. He even gave me his personal phone number. That doesn't happen. Normally he'll give me the services number,
Mm-hmm.
but because he and my mother had built such a relationship and she had worked with him and watched him during his residency at the hospital at St. Vincent's in Little Rock, Arkansas, she knew that he was a very good, OBGYN for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt very comforted by that. I felt very comforted by that. And even on the weekend, as I was resting, he called me personally, not his nurse. He
Mm-hmm.
called me, not his PA. He called me to ask me how I was doing. And he told me that he was going to be flying to play golf in Dallas. And he said, listen, if you need me, I can hop back on a plane and be back in Little Rock, Arkansas in less than an hour. Just let me know. So I had so much deep gratitude and appreciation for the relationship that he and I had. Of course, he had a relationship with my mom. That was how we were able to find him. But it was such a wonderful experience, and I was very, very comforted by that. So when that happened, it kind of knocked me for a loop because I knew that this was not normal. And
Right.
the manner in which I was cared for and manner in which he cared about me made such a difference in my relationship, and it helped me calm down. So that was major.
That's so important.
Yeah.
That's so, so important. It sounds like your relationship with your physician was key towards really helping you walk this thing out and be comfortable and confident in the decisions that were made and the management that was going forth. Was there ever an experience with the healthcare system in general, maybe the hospital system, that made you feel that your concerns were maybe not addressed or maybe you weren't heard? And if so, how did you deal with that
I
situation?
really did not experience that, and I think that I did not experience it because I had great advocates with me,
Mm,
people that were advocating for my health and my well-being. And because the doctor was so well respected, and because my mom was an OB/GYN nurse,
right.
I had the top level care that I
Mm-hmm.
needed. And so if I was uncomfortable after having the cesarean, I could say that and they would take care of me. If my baby was doing something unexpected, that first baby bowel movement, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, hold it. There's something wrong with my baby. I pushed all the buttons and they wasn't responding loud enough, quick enough for me. I started getting a little bit loud. It took me a minute to get to the door to say, somebody come help me with my baby. Something's going on. But the nurses came in and said, calm down, Miss Allen. This is absolutely normal. And they walked me through it. Because sometimes that baby, new mommy brain,
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't function well. Even though I had read
Mm-mm.
about this, to actually see it
Right.
for myself and have it happen. Oh, wow. That was a totally different experience. So they
Wow.
made me feel very, very comfortable in walking me through what to anticipate.
Right.
Especially, I had two girls, then I had a little boy, which
Mm-hmm.
meant that there was some
Totally different
more
experience.
care. Totally. I was
Yes.
like, you're going to take my baby and circumcise him? What?
Mm-hmm.
Can we give him
Mm-hmm.
some medication or something?
Mm-hmm.
So your dad was nervous. We knew it was coming. We knew it was
Right.
happening. It needed to happen. Okay.
Right.
Already done our research. Already done
Right.
our research. But when it's your baby,
Yeah.
and
When it's right. When it's in the
yes,
moment, it's totally different.
Think about it. How many hands helped raise you? How many voices spoke life over you? How many arms held you close? Black family is deep, and at Melanin Maternity, we celebrate every single part of it. We're not just a shop for mamas. We're a love letter to the entire village. From keepsake birth announcements that honor your newest blessing, to new dad gifts, to presents for the grandma who still prays over you, We have gifts that tell your family's story. Looking for holiday gear that actually represents us? We got that too. Because whether you're the one having the baby or the one making sure the baby always has love, you deserve to be celebrated. Shop Melanin Maternity on Etsy today by visiting melaninmaternity.etsy.com. Because our families, our stories, and our legacies deserve the spotlight.
That piece about advocacy that you mentioned is so important. It is so important that we have a village, that we realize that we were not meant to do this alone. I like to tell my mamas that the village is for you too. It's not just for our children. And I like to think about it like this. You know that kid in school whose parents were always there? Mama was always volunteer reading, the chaperone on the field trip, the this, that, and the other. Those kids, you don't mess with those kids because you know that there is an adult around and you will be accountable to them. And it's the same thing when you bring your family with you.
Absolutely.
You are vulnerable, okay? You are in pain. You are scared. You are anxious. This is not a situation you've dealt with before. You need people around you who got your back when you can't think straight.
Absolutely.
And when things are going off script and all of the things. And that's what advocates will do for you. They already know your wishes. They already know your desires. And you can trust that in the event that you cannot speak up for yourself, simply because pain will change your mind. How many times have we seen mamas who went in with this plan to have a natural delivery and, not have any type of medication, and then that pain hits and you change your mind all the way, and, pain will change your mind. So you need people around you who know your wishes and you can trust, they got your back and can advocate for you. And that goes such a long way towards improving your experience. So thank you for sharing that piece about advocacy.
Absolutely. And I appreciate your book so much because it speaks to that. And it talks about how we communicate with the people that are going to be advocating for us, that we make clear what our standard is and what we'd like to have going forward. Even if I'm incapacitated, this is what I want. And, consider what they're saying, but this is what I want. And make the very best decision you can for me and my baby.
Right. Right. Such good points.
Takes a village.
Such good points. Let's see. Was there a moment where you felt particularly empowered by something your provider or your support team did for you?
One of the main things that really helped me was my support system. They were not only a village for me and advocates and a support system they were there for my entire family because, when we decide to have children, we can read about them, we can study about what to expect. But it's not until they come in the room and say, okay, Allen family, you can go and take your baby with you. I looked at my husband and he looked at me and he said, they're just going to let us take this baby like this?
Do you know me? Do you
Oh,
know I haven't done this
excuse me.
before? Do you know
We've
I don't know
never
what I'm
done it.
doing? Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
can you come back in and give us those notes one more time?
Yeah.
You sent us home with this, with a human. I mean, I know we were expecting a human, but are there any booklets? Are there any pamphlets that go along? So
instruction manuals.
it's like,
Yeah.
here you go. You can go now. Your parents, congratulations. So we were, see you. Don't call us. We'll call you. But it was, it goes back to my support system because they were just there and we were prepared, but we really weren't prepared. We really were not prepared.
Yeah.
And the more we learned, we took so many notes. We had to write down everything, because okay, when was the last time we fed a baby? Change and all of that. So we did a number of things, as we were beginning parents, and it was a wonderful time.
Yeah.
But our support system rallied around us, and they even gave us the space that we needed as a new family, because we were a unit trying to become whole. We were trying to learn. Really, we were learning.
Right.
Absolutely, a learning.
That's so important.
Absolutely.
That's so important. That's so interesting. I cannot tell you how many mamas don't want to leave the hospital and be trying to come up with any and all excuses why you should keep them in the hospital because it is so scary. But it
It is.
really does highlight something super important that we often neglect, which is to forget how important the postpartum period is. We forget that even from a medical
Absolutely.
standpoint, it's still a high risk period for
Right.
pregnancy complications. And just
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that we miss that is so crucial in improving maternity health outcomes is to focus on that postpartum period, to do a better job identifying which mamas are at risk, which mamas maybe don't have
Yes.
the protection, the covering, the village that they need to navigate those
Right.
situations. How can we
Absolutely.
get resources to them? How can we get real time support to them so that they can do a better job with those first few weeks after we just say bye bye? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's crazy. It's like at
Yes.
the end of pregnancy, you
Yeah.
see your doctor every week, weekly. And then they're like, okay, we'll holla.
Yes.
I'll see you in 6 weeks. And you're like, huh?
Yeah. Oh, wait a
What?
minute.
Okay.
Hold it.
Yeah.
We're gonna do what now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
So definitely,
Yes.
that's definitely a
Yes.
space where we can do a better job, improving our outcomes by paying more attention and being more intentional about
Absolutely.
caring for mothers and their babies during that time period.
That's true. But it's so important that we equip the mommies with maybe even mental health resources
Mm-hmm.
because postpartum and sometimes it comes with a great deal of depression. Our bodies, the hormones are all over the place, and we're just trying to take care of the baby, and nobody's really taking care of the mom and what's
Right.
going on in her body. Busy trying to care for the infant that sometimes she will neglect her own self.
Right.
So
Such an
it's
important
vital.
point.
It is.
Such an important
Yeah.
point. Were there any unique traditions, affirmations, or rituals that became important to you during your pregnancy journey?
I think one of the things that I had to remember and realign myself with is that these children are a gift from God, and I am the vessel in which the Lord has entrusted to bring these children to term and offer them back. Not only are they to the world, but to Him. So for me, it was more of a very, very much a spiritual journey. I was just a vessel that the Lord had allowed your dad and I to procreate and carry these babies and to understand that we were carrying life, such a precious, precious thing, because, there's a time where I was getting a little bit big and I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
really drive as comfortably as I wanted to, but yet I wanted to make that run by Taco Bell
Mm-hmm.
on my way from work because I was craving Taco Bell. And then when I get home, I'd fix dinner, but I had to make that run. But I was getting uncomfortable and I had to really give up driving for a little while. But for us, it was just really a matter of seeing that we were so blessed to become parents because we had been around other couples that had had difficulty conceiving. So
Gotcha.
we saw it as a gift to back to the
In what ways has this pregnancy journey changed you?
wow. What ways hasn't it changed? It would really be a better
Mm,
question for me because, when we decide and choose to become parents, our lives are no longer just ours. We have yielded to the gifting of pregnancy, childbearing, and you step away from the selfish you because you want to provide everything humanly possible, godly possible for this new life that you're bringing into the world and have the world embrace this new being. So, everything about you changes. The maternal hormones kick in and there's such a selfless love that comes over you, such a protective love that you embody. And especially if you're walking this along with the Lord and you have a part of this walking it along with you, there's such a special covering and there is such a special blessing, I believe, that the Lord equips us with to become parents and to walk and to live this life out and to care for our children. It's vital because your whole world will never be the same
right.
after you have, number one, asked the Lord if you could become parents and you start the conception process. You really have to trust and believe God. Really do it. You have to trust and listen to your body and believe what your body is saying. And I'm grateful that I had that insight, that covering, that family, that husband that was there to shield me and cover and to walk alongside me because we've never been the same. We've been
Mm,
changed forever.
forever. I like to
Absolutely.
say, you didn't just have a baby. It wasn't just that a baby was born, a mama was born. You will never be the
Absolutely.
same person again.
That's
Yeah. So
right.
just
That's true.
learning that person, embracing that person, understanding that person is a journey. You're growing up
Absolutely.
together, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you are a single mom, it's even more of a little bit of a scary journey
Mm-hmm.
because where the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and all of those things may have been a dream somewhere, your life has taken a turn. And when your life takes a turn, are you going to lean into the curve and learn and grow? Or are you going to take another exit, take the first
Mm.
exit to your left or to your right? So you have to make some really hard decisions and some really hard choices when you decide to bring baby into the world.
Important to remember to give ourselves grace,
Absolutely.
that grace that we were
Yes,
operating in excellence. We were doing the best that we could with the information we had available to us at that time. And that's enough.
yes, that's
That is
true.
the
That's
definition
true.
of excellence. It's not
Absolutely.
perfection. We're not
No,
striving for perfection.
far from that.
We're just grace and excellence. That's it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Who was a constant source of support for you during your pregnancy, and how did they make a difference?
Well, I have to go back to my mother because having all the knowledge, how blessed was I to
Mm-hmm.
have a mom that was actually a OBGYN nurse and could walk me through these processes. So I leaned heavily on her because she knew exactly how the body was going to change,
Mm-hmm.
and how, and so because she has seen so
Mm-hmm.
many births and helped so
Mm-hmm.
many moms and dads through the process. Oh, she was a great resource. And even when I was scared, my dad would tell me, "Listen, you got this. We're gonna get through this together. You can do it. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
help you do it." So just having them there, my parents were my greatest supporters and my greatest advocates, and they were wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful
That's
for all of
awesome.
my
That's
pregnancy.
awesome. That's awesome. Looking back, were there some funny or lighthearted moments from your pregnancy that still bring a smile to your face?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. That first movement of the baby was always, "Stop, wait a minute. I think I feel something." Well, wait a minute. I better not call my husband yet and hear, "Oh no, that's actually a movement. Hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Babe, come in here and see. Feel,
Mm-hmm.
feel, feel." And, the baby
Mm-hmm.
might not move for another 20, 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or I call my mom and dad, "My baby just moved. My baby just moved." So that was such an exciting time. And then, they kind of described what your baby would look like. And, I go back to that reference of a watermelon. I was like, "A watermelon in my uterus? Are you serious? I'm going to get that big?" Said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, these changes are going to happen to your body. So let's just prepare for them." So it was always wonderful. And then, those first little smiles on the infant's face, but just preparing myself, preparing
Mm-hmm.
myself for the changes that were going to be happening in my body. That first kick was always, oh my gosh, it was such a wonderful moment that I could embrace. There really is a baby in here. I'm not just picking up weight. We really are pregnant. I'm
Mm-hmm.
growing. Yes. So it had to be that first movement, that very
That's
first
awesome.
movement. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How do you celebrate, or how did you celebrate your growing family during pregnancy? Were there any special events, traditions that you created along?
Every trimester, we would treat ourselves to dinner. We
Oh,
would treat
nice.
ourselves to dinner because it was such a milestone. It was
Mm-hmm.
such a milestone. And because we knew other couples that were having trouble conceiving, every trimester was just a marker for us to celebrate that the Lord had brought us this far
Right.
and that we were good and that we were progressing.
It's awesome. Awesome. This has been such a fantastic conversation. Thank you for letting us in and giving us a glimpse into your world and what your experience was like. I know that you have blessed so many mamas with your story. We have a tradition here on this podcast. Tradition, this is the first time, but it will be a tradition
First,
going forward. Yes, yes. Where we like
absolutely,
to leave,
absolutely.
yes, a thought, a affirmation, a word of encouragement to the next mama. So this is my Dear Black Mama series. If you follow my social media, you probably have seen the post.
Yes.
There are things like, dear Black mama, your needs are not a burden, or dear Black mama, you were never asking the wrong questions, you were just asking the wrong provider, or dear Black mama, you deserve to be celebrated, not just tolerated. So just a one-liner that will help to uplift, encourage a mama coming behind you, particularly for someone who may be having some anxiety or some fear surrounding their pregnancy experience.
Fantastic. Dear Black Mama, you can do this. The Lord
Yes.
has equipped you with everything you need. It's going to be rough, going to be tough, but you were built for this. You can do it, and we're counting on you to do it.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank
Bless
you, thank you.
you.
And
Bless
thank you.
you.
Yes, thank you to all of you who joined us on this episode. And
Thank
until next
you.
time, I'll leave you with what my mom always says, which is take good care.
Want to go deeper? The conversation doesn't have to stop here. Join Melanin Maternity, our digital Black birth community, where you'll get expert guidance, real support, and a sisterhood that sees you. From live Q&As with birth experts to empowering discussions with other Black mamas, we've got you covered. Click the link in the description and step into the community you deserve.